Hey everyone, and welcome back to Inside the Inferno. I'm Adam Noel, he is James Malamas, and as you can tell, things are a little different than our first show this season. But James, doesn't it just feel right to be back here at the desk?
It does, Adam. Pro sports are back in full swing. Some college conferences are going ahead with their fall sports, and we have an update on where the Pac-12 stands as of now. We have a great show to kick off the year.
Well, I know I'm excited. Let's kick things off by bringing in Inferno Intel wrestling reporter Nick Zeller-Singh. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks Adam.
And what do you have for us today?
Now, although Arizona State is not the most decorated college wrestling program, they have some of the best success in the MMA world. Currently, their success has landed 2 ASU fighters in the UFC Hall of Fame and 2 more on the cusp. They also have a fighter in one of the most significant fights in UFC history. But besides their Hall of Fame accolades, ASU has reshaped the MMA scene in multiple ways. Some examples include MMA's landscape being changed with Cain Velasquez bringing a new style of defensive wrestling, Dan Henderson bringing the tough wrestling pace to 5-minute bouts, and Dan Severn placing the heavyweight class in national fame when UFC first started in 1993. Now, since then, ASU has been a feeder school for MMA. ASU's head coach Zeke Jones, as well as the UFC, have recognized Arizona State and incorporated their legacy into the wrestling program. They first showed their respect to their former alumni last year by hosting a mixed martial arts night against Cal State Bakersfield. With college wrestling on potential hold, now is the time to look at some of these former Sun Devils who are rising up the MMA ranks.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today, Nick. Always love those MMA connections.
The Pac-12 has entered discussions which could see sports begin as soon as Halloween. In the most recent meetings yesterday, administrators discussed the possibility. For more, we go to Ryan Blank.
The Pac is back exactly 44 days after the Pac-12 announced a postponement for fall sports until the spring. The conference unanimously voted to bring fall sports back this year. The conference agreed on a 7-game schedule starting on November 6th, with the conference championship taking place on December 18th. Discussions about a reversal started last week after the Big Ten announced a late October return. However, the Pac-12's decision did require some hurdles. The first one being the testing for players before games. However, the new Pac-12 partnership with Hodell Corp gives the Pac-12 the opportunity to test players and get results within 15 minutes. The second hurdle would be surrounding the COVID-19 precautions in California and Oregon. That affects half the Pac-12 schools. However, both governors in California and Oregon have granted permission for teams to have contact practices in preparation for the season. Despite having no fans in attendance until at least January, we still get to see the Sun Devils in action this fall.
Thanks, Ryan. Speaking of ASU football, former Sun Devil Brandon Ayuk made his debut last week for the San Francisco 49ers. Our Michael Baribault has the details.
The San Francisco 49ers are off to a 1-1 start following a 31-13 win over the New York Jets on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Former Arizona State wide receiver Brandon Ayuk got his first playing time after being inactive for Week 1. He was targeted 3 times, catching 2 passes for 21 yards in his limited action. Ayuk and 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media after the game.
I was happy for Brandon. Anytime you're a rookie and you get to go in your first game, there's always a lot of pressure on you and stuff, and especially with the fact he hadn't been out of practice that much, missing those 3 weeks. So he got kind of thrown into the fire this week in practice, and I thought he only did better in the game. He made a couple plays, broke a couple tackles, a couple rookie mistakes too, which we'll keep harping on, but that's a little expected. But it was nice to see the game wasn't too big for him. He caught the ball, thought he had a good off-schedule play, and I always love watching guys break tackles.
It was the first win, a lot of first game nerves, but I feel like this week of practice we just practiced as if I didn't miss those practices. So I don't think that was anything that we were concerned about. It was just playing our game, just me playing my own game. A couple of rookie mistakes, but mistakes that shouldn't have been made, but mistakes I'll definitely have to learn from, look at the film, and just learn from those next week.
What was the role expected of Ayuk this coming season, Michael?
Well, he was expected to ease into the season being a rookie, but had a leg up on most players drafted since he was going to a 49ers team that runs a very similar offense to what Herm Edwards runs at Arizona State. So he would have a rather smooth transition to the NFL.
And for you, what do you see his role becoming with the 49ers after this opening game?
Well, I expect him to have a bigger role in the offense due to a few reasons. One, like we mentioned before, he's coming from ASU where they ran a similar offense, and most of what San Francisco runs is familiar to him. And secondly, with all of the injuries that the 49ers suffered in Week 2, it could open the door for Ayuk to get meaningful playing time for not only this week when they play the Giants, but for the rest of the season. Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and George Kittle potentially not being able to play this week could make for a huge week for the former Sun Devil.
And for you, what do you see as something for Ayuk to work on going forward? I know he had kind of had that quiet debut, but moving forward in the season.
Well, he answered in his post-game presser a little bit, saying that he wanted to clean up some rookie mistakes that he had made, but to also build a better rapport with quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo and, if necessary, backup quarterback Nick Mullins. He mentioned that he was off to a good start working with Garoppolo before he was injured, and he expects to have it continue now that he's back fully healthy.
Thanks, Michael. Well, we are in the studio, and that means it's time for this week's edition of Inferno Intel Headlines. This week, James and I pick our favorite ASU-related news from this past week. Now, James, I know ASU athletics aren't currently going on, but there are a lot of headlines around related to ASU with other athletes, possibly professional and otherwise.
Yeah, a lot of former Sun Devils making big headlines all across the sports world this past week.
And let's kick things off, and I'll start us off with something I saw on Twitter from this last weekend. And it comes from former ASU receiver N'Keal Harry after he and the New England Patriots took on the Seattle Seahawks in Week 2. This photo clearly depicts the chemistry Harry has formed with Cam Newton early on in this season. The two connected for 8 receptions and 72 yards, which were both career highs for Harry in the NFL. And gotta love Cam throwing up the Wakanda Forever to honor the late Chadwick Boseman.
Really great to see Harry put up numbers in the NFL. My headline comes from The Diamond. In an article written by ASU's own Jordan Spurgeon, it highlighted Sun Devils softball player Olivia Miller, who has led the charge to help get all eligible Sun Devils registered to vote. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Miller felt the urge to do more in her community and took action into her own hands. Since then, she has met with ASU coaches, players, and staff about registering to vote. Sun Devil Tennis tweeted out a photo that 100% of their team is registered to vote. Sun Devil football head coach Herm Edwards also sat with his players and helped them register as well. It is amazing to see Miller make such a difference in the community and help her fellow Sun Devils. That's it for today's headlines. Now we bring it to Inferno Intel basketball reporter Ray Belcora to update us on the Pac12 hoops situation. ASU basketball ended last season with a win over Washington State before COVID-19 shut down the Pac12 tournament. We now welcome in Inferno Intel basketball reporter Ray Belcora. Ray, how has Bobby Hurley's program changed since March?
Yeah, James. So sharpshooter Rob Edwards and Mickey Mitchell graduated, and Romello White transferred to Ole Miss. But Remy Martin and Alonzo Verge are returning after testing the NBA draft waters. Additionally, freshman Marcus Bagley and 5-star recruit Josh Christopher will come into the picture, giving Bobby Hurley a lot of weapons to work with this season.
Now we know about Martin, Verge, and the freshman duo, but who might be flying under the radar right now that ASU will need to contribute in order to take the next step?
I think it's the two Jalens. They're both sophomores. Jalen House is an excellent defender, but struggled from 3 last year. He shot just 27% from 3, but he played over 16 minutes a game because of his strong defense. On the other hand, Jalen Graham is going to need to be one of ASU's best rebounders this season with the departure of Romello White. Inside is an area where ASU could potentially struggle this season.
With all that talent and off-season hype, what are some realistic expectations for the Sun Devils next season?
You know, this conference is going to be talented once again. Stanford is talented, UCLA is going to be talented, Oregon and Arizona are always there. So I don't think it's fair to expect ASU to win the conference, even though this is the most talented Sun Devil team in years. I expect ASU to get a first-round bye in Las Vegas and hopefully make it past the first round of the NCAA tournament. That would be a successful season, in my opinion.
Thanks, Ray and James. Can't wait to see what that team is going to do this year. Now I'm joined by Abby Sharpe for today's edition of Abby's Hot Corner.
Thanks, Adam. As Ryan mentioned earlier, the Pac-12 voted last night on what the restart date for the football season will be. Choosing a November start date was so important, not only for practice reasons, but for injury prevention. Through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season, we've seen a high number of players go down with injuries to their ACLs and their Achilles. The Pac-12 needs to give their players adequate time to prepare and train the correct way to prevent possible injuries. A few weightlifting sessions isn't the same as training on the field.
Yeah, absolutely, Abby. I think that was a key thing, and I think Herm Edwards said it best today when he said, it was really scary to see all these NFL players go down this past weekend, and his team going in dry for a game in less than a month. I think it really is something that is going to be a concern.
Yeah. As we all know by now, former ASU running back Eno Benjamin was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in the 7th round of the 2020 draft, but hasn't seen any game action through the first 2 games. This will be hard for some ASU fans to hear, but the Cardinals simply don't need Eno right now. Even with the David Johnson departure as part of the DeAndre Hopkins trade, the depth chart line just moved up, with Kenyon Drake being the every down back and Chase Edmonds responsible for a few carries here and there and kick return duty. And Kyler Murray is the one leading the Cardinals in rush yards. I wouldn't expect Eno to see any significant time this season.
Well, I think one of the biggest factors in that was how well Edmonds played through those first couple games, and also the fact that Eno beat out former Sun Devil DJ Foster was a big deal to get that number 3 job. But I think just Eno, we're not going to really get to see a lot of him this season so far.
Yeah. ASU softball's Olivia Miller is a leader among ASU athletics, striving to get 100% of eligible student athletes registered to vote, like James talked about earlier. At least 10 athletic programs have reached the 100% mark within their teams. It's so important that Miller took up this mission. Our generation needs to use our voices to promote change within our country, and it starts with voting in our local elections for the officials that will serve and govern our communities. If you're not registered to vote, do it right now.
No, absolutely, Abby. I think that's an important message for pretty much everyone our age and older to go out and vote. And I think Olivia Miller, she was someone I covered this season for Sun Devil softball. And ASU athletes have that bigger voice, and they'll inspire others around them, especially students like us. We're all in this boat together, and I think it is a powerful message overall for that. Well, thanks for joining us today, Abby. Now we'll head to Nicholas Hodell with the Pro Devil Spotlight.
Last week's U.S. Open at Wingfoot Golf Club challenged the best golfers in the world, and a pair of former Sun Devils managed top 25 finishes. After barely making a cut at 6 over par heading into the weekend, Paul Casey shot a 1 under par 69 in the 3rd round, including 5 birdies in the back 9 for one of only 8 under par rounds during the 3rd round. A final round of 3 over 73 would put Casey at 8 over par for the tournament and tied for 17th. John Rahm did not have a problem making the cut at 1 over par in the first 2 rounds. However, he struggled during the final 2 rounds to finish the tournament at 10 over par. Still good for his 4th straight top 25 finish at a major championship. Finally, former Arizona State golfers earned over $12 million during the 2019-20 PGA Tour season that wrapped up over Labor Day weekend. This is good for 2nd among all colleges with PGA Tour golfers, according to the Rivals Cup website. This is also the 6th straight season that Arizona State has placed in the top 3 in these standings. Not too bad whatsoever.
Well, that'll do it for today's show. Big thanks to everyone who came on and to all those who helped out here in the studio. Be sure to check out all their work at infernointel.com.
And be sure to follow us also on Twitter at Inferno Intel. Thanks for watching.